I found out my younger brother had already gotten married, while my dress was still hanging inside a garment bag. The invitation in my purse said the ceremony was the next afternoon. The wedding album on my aunt's kitchen table said it had happened 7 days earlier. I wasn't in a single photograph. My mother was wearing the pearl earrings I had given her. The wooden candle holders on every reception table had been made from lumber I paid for. 6 weeks earlier, Mom had taken $6,000 from me because Ethan's wedding was in danger of falling apart. Then my brother posted a photograph with the caption, "Surrounded by everyone who truly matters." They hadn't simply excluded me from the wedding. They had used my money to make my absence look beautiful. And when Mom called a week later, demanding another check for the family cabin, she discovered I was no longer willing to pay for a place at a table where no chair had ever been saved for me. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 38 years old when I finally understood that being useful to my family was not the same as being loved by them. I arrived at Aunt Ruth's house on a Friday afternoon, carrying an overnight bag, a garment bag, and a wrapped wedding gift for my brother Ethan. According to the invitation, he was getting married the next day at a renovated barn outside Springfield, Missouri. I lived nearly 3 hours away in Kansas City, so Aunt Ruth had offered me her guest room. I had taken Monday off from work because I thought I might stay after the ceremony and help clean up. That was what I did in my family. I stayed late. I paid the forgotten bill. I cleaned the kitchen while everyone else took pictures. I remembered birthdays, ordered flowers, and brought extra folding chairs. Useful people are often mistaken for loved people because they are always invited when something needs to be carried. Aunt Ruth opened the front door and immediately stared at the garment bag over my shoulder. Her face changed. Not surprise. Fear. "Claire," she said, "why did you bring your dress?" I laughed because I thought she was joking. "For Ethan's wedding." She didn't move. The late afternoon sun poured through the windows behind her, but the hallway suddenly felt cold. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "Ethan got married last Saturday." For several seconds I thought she had confused the date. Then I looked past her. A large wedding album sat open on the kitchen table. The cover was stamped in gold, "Ethan and Megan, September 7th. My invitation said September 14th. I walked toward the table without taking off my coat. The first photograph showed my brother standing beneath an oak arbor smiling at his new wife. The next showed my parents beside them. Mom wore a pale blue dress and the pearl earrings I had given her for Christmas. Dad had one hand on Ethan's shoulder. He looked proud, relaxed, happy. It was a version of my father I rarely saw when I was in the room. I turned another page. My cousins stood beneath string lights, raising champagne glasses. Aunt Ruth sat near the back, smiling weakly. On each table was a small walnut candle holder from Ethan's furniture shop. 3 months earlier, Ethan had called to say a large restaurant order had fallen through. He needed money for lumber. This next project could turn everything around, he had told me. I sent him $2,800. He had used the wood to decorate a wedding he never intended to let me attend. I reached into my purse and pulled out the cream envelope. My name was written across the front in dark green calligraphy. The card inside looked identical to the real invitation, except for one number, 14 instead of 7. Aunt Ruth held the two invitations side by side. Her hands began to shake. "They printed a separate one for me," I said. "Claire, did you know?" She lowered her eyes. "I knew Ethan didn't want you there." The room seemed to tilt. "You knew. Your mother told me they had spoken to you. She said you agreed it would be better if you stayed away. And you believed her." Aunt Ruth's eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to." That answer hurt more than an excuse would have. "She told everyone you had chosen work over the wedding," Ruth continued. "I should have called you. I should have asked. But you didn't." Number. I placed the invitations on the table. The wrapped gift slipped from my arms. The box struck the floor and the silver picture frame inside shattered beneath the paper. Aunt Ruth bent down. I stopped her. "Let me." A piece of glass cut my palm as I gathered the fragments. A thin line of blood appeared across my skin. I watched it form without feeling much of anything. 6 weeks earlier, Mom had called me crying. The caterer needed another payment. Megan's parents had already contributed more than expected. Ethan's custom furniture shop had suffered a slow summer. "Your brother is too proud to ask you himself," Mom had said. "But this wedding means everything to him." I transferred $6,000 before the call ended. Mom told me not to mention it to Ethan because it might embarrass him. Standing in Aunt Ruth's kitchen, I realized he had never been embarrassed by taking my money. He had only been embarrassed by the thought of having me in his wedding photographs. I wrapped the broken glass in tissue paper. "I spent 3 weekends looking for a dress," I said. Aunt Ruth sat beside me on the floor. I'm sorry. I kept thinking the invitation meant things were getting better. I know. Number. I looked down at the false date. It did mean something. It meant they wanted me close enough to pay but far enough away not to be seen. Aunt Ruth covered her mouth. I didn't create the lie, she said, but my silence helped it work. That was the first honest apology anyone in my family had given me. It did not erase what she had done, but it mattered. I stood and washed the blood from my palm. Where are they now? At your parents' house. They were looking through photographs when I left. I'm going over there. Claire, maybe you should wait until tomorrow. I've been waiting my entire life. I changed out of my travel clothes and put on dark jeans, a white blouse, and the navy blazer I wore to hospital meetings. I worked as the regional communications director for a children's healthcare network. My mother described my job as writing brochures. Ethan built tables and cabinets, so she introduced him as an artist and business owner. His shop had nearly closed 3 times. Each time someone in the family called me. A broken saw, a late payroll, a van he could not afford. The details changed. The expectation did not. Ethan had once joked at Thanksgiving that I only had savings because I had never built a real family. Everyone laughed. Mom told me not to be sensitive. I remembered that joke as I drove toward my parents' house. Their home sat on a quiet street lined with maple trees. 3 cars were parked in the driveway. Through the living room window, I saw Mom, Dad, Ethan, and Megan gathered around the wedding album. A bottle of champagne rested on the coffee table. Mom was laughing. I stood on the porch for several seconds before ringing the bell. No one answered. I rang again. Ethan opened the door. His smile disappeared. He wore gray sweatpants and a t-shirt from his workshop. His new wedding ring caught the light as he folded his arms. What are you doing here? Not hello. Not Claire. Just irritation. I came for your wedding. His jaw tightened. That was last week. I know. Mom appeared behind him. Her eyes went immediately to the invitation in my hand. That was all the confirmation I needed. This isn't a good time, she said. I stepped inside. Dad remained in his recliner holding a champagne glass. Megan sat at the far end of the couch. A large wedding portrait had been propped on the mantel. My parents stood on one side of Ethan and Megan. Megan's parents stood on the other. The arrangement was balanced and complete. There was no visible space where I should have been. I placed my invitation on the coffee table. Why does mine have the wrong date? Megan leaned forward. What? Ethan looked at her. Don't start. She picked up the invitation before he could stop her. This says September 14th. Yes, I said. That's the invitation your husband's family sent me. Megan turned toward Ethan. You told me she refused to come. I told you she always makes things complicated. That isn't the same thing. Mom moved between them. We made a family decision. A family decision that didn't include me, I said. We knew how you would react. You knew I would react badly to being deliberately excluded. So you excluded me secretly. Mom adjusted the pearl necklace at her throat. This is exactly the intensity we were trying to avoid. There it was. The trick my family had used for years. They would hurt me and then use my reaction as proof that I deserved to be hurt. Ethan picked up his champagne glass. I wanted one day that wasn't about your grudges. What grudges? You know exactly what I mean. No, say it. He looked toward Dad. Our father lowered his eyes. Ethan sighed. You keep score. I remember what happened. You bring up money. When someone asks me for more while pretending they never took anything, yes. He laughed without humor. You walk into every room acting like you're the only one who has her life together. I never said that. You don't have to. You sit there with your corporate job and your savings and that look on your face. What look? The look that says you're better than us. Megan stared at him. I kept my voice calm. I gave Mom $6,000 for your reception. Megan turned toward my mother. You did what? Ethan's face changed. He had known. Mom spoke quickly. It was a family contribution. You told me Ethan didn't know. I said he was embarrassed to ask. That isn't the same thing. Mom's expression hardened. Why does every act of generosity from you come with an interrogation? Why does every request from you come with a lie? Dad finally spoke. Your mother was trying to protect Ethan's day. His voice was calm and reasonable. That made it worse. Did you know about the false invitation? He looked at the floor. I knew Ethan didn't want conflict. That wasn't my question. Your mother had already handled it. There was no reason to upset everyone by arguing. For 38 years, my father had called his silence neutrality. It had never been neutral. It always protected the person who was hurting me. Ethan stepped closer. You want the truth? I didn't want you there. The room went still. I wanted one day without you making Mom tense and Dad uncomfortable. I barely speak at family dinners. Exactly. You sit there judging everyone. I'm usually sitting there after paying for dinner. See money again. Megan said his name quietly. He ignored her. You live alone, he continued. You work all the time. You show up at holidays acting like everyone owes you applause. What exactly do you even have outside of your job? The sentence hit exactly where he intended. For years, my family had treated my unmarried life as empty space. My weekends were available. My holidays were flexible. My income was extra. My feelings were optional. What life, Ethan said. Megan stood. That was cruel. He looked at her. You don't understand our history. No, she said. I'm starting to think I don't. Mom reached for Megan's hand. This is not how your wedding week should be remembered. I almost laughed. My exclusion had been planned to preserve Megan's memories. Now my presence was supposedly ruining them. I'm not asking to be the center of anything, I said. I was asking to be in the room. No one answered. I looked around at the 4 people before me. To them, I was not a daughter or sister. I was a resource with inconvenient emotions. I'm done, I said. Mom frowned. With what? Paying Ethan's bills, covering emergencies, fixing this house, funding celebrations I'm not welcome to attend. Dad sat forward. Claire, don't be dramatic. And the cabin arrangement is ending. Mom's face changed instantly. The cabin has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with this. That property belongs to our family. It belongs to me. You know what I mean. Yes, I said. I finally do. The cabin near Table Rock Lake had belonged to my grandparents. It was not luxurious. It had 2 bedrooms, a sagging porch, and a narrow dock that needed repairs every other year. But it was the only place from my childhood where I remembered feeling included. After my grandparents died, my parents inherited it. Years later, when Ethan needed money to expand his workshop, they sold the cabin to me. I paid them a fair price. I allowed them to keep using it because I believed family property should stay connected to family memories. They responded by treating it as theirs while sending every bill to me. I had paid the taxes, insurance, roof repairs, and utilities for years. Mom still introduced herself to neighbors as the owner. You can use it through the end of October, I said. After that, I'm changing the locks. Anything you keep there needs to be removed. Mom stared at me. You would throw your own parents out of their family cabin because you missed one party. It was my brother's wedding, and you are making it about yourself. The invitation was the first time you put your opinion of me in writing. Her lips parted. For once, she did not have an immediate response. Ethan stepped toward me. You can't just take the cabin. I'm not taking it. I've been paying for it while you used it. This is punishment. This is a boundary. You're jealous. Of what? Of my marriage? My business? The fact that Mom and Dad are proud of me. Megan looked at him in disbelief. His business was struggling. His wedding had required money from his sister. His wife had just discovered he had lied to her. Still, he needed to believe I envied him. It was the only story that protected him from seeing himself clearly. Mom pointed toward the door. You need to leave before you say something you regret. I regret staying quiet much more. I picked up the false invitation. As I reached the hallway, Mom called after me. Your father's cardiology payment is due next Friday. I stopped. She had waited less than a minute after telling me to leave before reminding me what I was expected to pay. Dad looked embarrassed. Not enough to object. You know we're stretched thin after the wedding, Mom continued. Call the hospital and arrange a payment plan. Her face went blank. You know we can't manage that right now. Ethan can help. Everyone looked at him. He glanced away. My shop has been slow. Then perhaps you shouldn't have held a wedding you couldn't afford. Ethan's face reddened. Mom stepped forward. You don't speak to your brother that way, but he can ask me what life I have. He was emotional. So am I. Yes, Mom said. And look what happens when you let it control you. I left before she could turn my pain into another character flaw. My hands shook so badly that I dropped my keys beside the car. I drove 4 blocks and pulled into the parking lot of a closed pharmacy. Then I cried. Not graceful tears. Not the quiet kind people wipe away while staring heroically through a windshield. I cried until my chest hurt. Standing up for myself did not erase what they had done. There would never be a photograph of Ethan and me at his wedding. No awkward sibling dance. No toast. No moment when he looked across the room and seemed glad I had come. Boundaries could protect the future. They could not replace the past. That was what made them painful. My phone began ringing before I reached Kansas City. Mom called twice. Dad sent a message asking me to calm down before making permanent decisions. By Sunday evening, cousins who had not contacted me in months were suddenly worried about my emotional health. Uncle Mark wrote, Your mother says you refused to attend and now regret it. Don't punish the whole family because you made a mistake. Cousin Beth asked whether stress at work had caused me to misunderstand the date. A woman from my parents' church sent me a Bible verse about forgiveness. No one asked whether I was all right. Mom had rewritten the story before I reached the highway. According to her, I had chosen not to attend, become jealous after seeing the photographs, and threatened to take the cabin out of spite. The truth disappeared beneath a more convenient explanation. On Monday morning, Ethan posted another set of wedding pictures. The caption read, "An unforgettable day with the people who have always supported us." Mom commented, "Family is everything." I stared at the words until they blurred. Then my banking app sent a reminder. Dad's medical payment was due in 4 days. I opened the transfer screen. My fingers moved automatically. For years, paying had been easier than refusing. I entered the amount. My thumb hovered over the button. I imagined Dad receiving the payment. Mom would calm down. She might call and say we should put the ugliness behind us. Perhaps there would be an invitation to Thanksgiving. Maybe the family would stop talking about me. For a few weeks, the old peace would return. But it would be their peace, not mine. I closed the app. Then I sat at my desk and cried again. Strength did not arrive as one perfect decision. Sometimes it was choosing the same boundary again 10 minutes later. That afternoon, I opened a notebook and wrote down the major times I had rescued my family. I did not build a complicated case. I did not calculate interest. I needed to see the pattern. The wedding payment. The lumber. Dad's hospital balance. Repairs to the cabin. Several failed attempts to rescue Ethan's shop. The Thanksgiving groceries Mom asked me to buy before moving dinner to Ethan's house and telling me there was no room. Beside each item, I wrote what happened afterward. No repayment. No thank you. Not invited. Asked not to mention it. Called selfish. Asked for more. The problem was not only the money. The problem was how quickly my help became invisible. The moment I stopped, they acted as though I had stolen something from them. On Tuesday afternoon, Aunt Ruth appeared at my office carrying sandwiches and tomato soup from my favorite deli. She had driven nearly 3 hours. "You sounded too calm on the phone," she said. "In this family, that usually means someone is falling apart politely." I laughed to spite myself. She sat across from my desk. "I owe you more than an apology," she said. "You already apologized." I said words. "I need to tell you the truth." I waited. 2 weeks before the wedding, your mother told me Ethan didn't want you there. I argued with her. She said you had already agreed not to come. Why didn't you check? Because your mother punishes people who question her. She freezes them out, changes the story, makes everyone choose sides. And you were afraid she'd do that to you? Yes, so you let her do it to me. Aunt Ruth nodded. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she did not ask me to comfort her. I didn't make the false invitation, she said, but I helped create the silence that allowed it. I'm sorry. I looked out the window. You could have stopped this. I know. I don't know whether I forgive you yet. You don't have to. That answer mattered too. My assistant knocked on the open door. Claire Megan Bennett is downstairs. She says she only needs 5 minutes. Aunt Ruth raised her eyebrows. I hesitated, then asked security to send her up. Megan entered carrying a folder and looking as though she had not slept. I'm sorry to show up without calling, she said. What happened? She placed the folder on my desk. Inside were printed pages from the wedding budget. I asked Ethan about the invitation, and he said you offered money because you like controlling people. Aunt Ruth made a disgusted sound. Megan continued, I checked the payment spreadsheet. Your mother listed your $6,000 as a contribution from Ethan's side of the family. Then I looked at the receipts from his shop. The lumber you paid for became our table decorations. I know. Her eyes filled. I didn't. She sat down. He told me you refused to attend because you didn't approve of me. I barely knew you. I should have questioned why his only sister wasn't at the wedding. Yes, I said. She flinched, but nodded. I should have. I respected her more for accepting the answer. Did he tell you why he didn't want me there, I asked. He said you were jealous of his success. Aunt Ruth looked at the ceiling. Megan studied my face. Is there more? There is always more with Ethan. I told her about the shop loans, the van, the lumber, and the way my parents called each new problem a family emergency. I did not exaggerate. I did not ask her to leave him. When I finished, she closed the folder. I need time to think. You should take it. Are you going to destroy his business? Number. She looked surprised. I'm going to stop saving it. Those are not the same thing. Megan left quietly. 3 days later, Ethan appeared in the lobby of my office building. Security called upstairs. He says you're ruining his marriage, the guard told me. He's demanding to see you. I remained at my desk. Is he threatening anyone? Not directly. He's loud. I'm not coming down. For once, I did not rush to protect my family from embarrassment. 10 minutes later, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. It was Megan. I'm outside, she said. Through my office window, I could see her standing near the fountain. Ethan was pacing beside his truck while a security guard watched him. I followed him, she said. I was afraid he'd do something stupid. I'm sorry. He keeps saying you owe him. I closed my eyes. He says you don't have children or a husband, so your money should help the family members who actually need it. There it was. Not only the cruelty he showed me, the belief beneath it. Megan's voice trembled. When I told him that was disgusting, he said, she has nobody else. What is she going to spend it on? I watched her turn away from the truck. That's how he sees me, I said. I know. No. That's how all of them see me. Megan was quiet. Then she said, I'm going to my parents' house. I did not tell her what to do. I only said, take care of yourself. That evening, Ethan called 17 times. I did not answer. Mom left a voicemail accusing me of poisoning Megan against him. Dad wrote that a sister should never interfere in a new marriage. No one blamed the man who had lied to his wife. The next week, Mom asked Pastor Grant to arrange a family meeting. He had known us for 20 years. He had attended birthdays, Christmas dinners, and Ethan's wedding. His voicemail said my parents wanted peaceful mediation with someone neutral. There was nothing neutral about a man who had sat at my mother's table for 2 decades. But I agreed on 3 conditions. The meeting would take place in the public seating area of my office lobby. Aunt Ruth would attend. Everyone involved in the wedding invitation would be present. Mom did not like the last condition. She eventually agreed. Wednesday morning, I entered the lobby and found my parents, Ethan, Megan, Aunt Ruth, and Pastor Grant, seated near the windows. Ethan looked exhausted. Megan sat several chairs away from him. She was no longer wearing her wedding ring. Mom wore her camel-colored coat, and the expression she used whenever she wanted strangers to see her as dignified. Dad looked older than he had 2 weeks earlier. Pastor Grant stood. Claire, thank you for agreeing to this. Mom glanced around the lobby. This is far too public. That's why I chose it. We are discussing private family matters. You made the wedding public. Ethan leaned forward. Can we get this over with? Pastor Grant raised a hand. We are here to listen, not attack. Mom nodded as though the instruction had been intended for me. The security desk stood 20 feet away. Employees crossed the lobby on their way to elevators. No one was staring, but my mother behaved as if the entire city was watching. Reputation had always mattered more to her than repair. Pastor Grant began. Your parents believe a painful misunderstanding has grown into a conflict that could permanently damage this family. There was no misunderstanding. Mom sighed. Here we go. I opened my bag and placed 2 invitations on the low table, mine and Aunt Ruth's. The designs were identical. The dates were not. Pastor Grant picked them up. His expression changed. This one says September 14th. That is the invitation they mailed me. Mom folded her hands. Ethan had concerns about her behavior. Pastor Grant looked at her. So a separate invitation was printed. We made a difficult decision to preserve peace. Megan spoke. You told me Claire refused to attend. Mom turned toward her. This is a family conversation. I'm your son's wife. Not for much longer, apparently. Ethan looked at Megan. Are you really doing this here? She met his gaze. You did it before our wedding. Aunt Ruth leaned forward. Carol told me Claire had already agreed to stay away. That was a lie. Mom stared at her sister. You always hated that I kept this family together. Aunt Ruth's voice remained calm. No. I was afraid of what you would do if I challenged you. That fear helped you hurt Claire. I'm not staying quiet anymore. Mom looked around as though betrayal had surrounded her. Pastor Grant placed the invitations back on the table. Carol, this was deliberate deception. You don't know the history. I understand the dates. Dad shifted in his chair. Mom continued quickly. Claire has resented Ethan since childhood. Every family event becomes uncomfortable because she brings up old grievances. I did not mention money at the engagement dinner, I said. I congratulated them and gave you $6,000 6 weeks later. Pastor Grant turned toward my parents. Is that true? Dad stared at his hands. Mom answered. She offered to help. You called me crying. You could afford it. That is not the same as consent to be used. Ethan shook his head. Here we go again. Money, money, money. Megan looked at him. She paid for part of our wedding. She likes people knowing that. She didn't tell me. You did. He looked away. I took a breath. I did not come here to demand repayment. I came because you are asking me to continue paying while pretending I am the one destroying the family. Mom's voice rose. The cabin has belonged to us for generations. It belonged to Grandma and Grandpa. Then it belonged to you. You sold it to me when Ethan needed money. That arrangement was supposed to keep it in the family. It is in the family. You know what I mean. I looked directly at her. Yes. You mean you should use it and I should pay for it? People near the elevator glanced over. Mom lowered her voice. You are humiliating us. No. I am describing what happened. Ethan stood. You want everyone to think you're some victim because you weren't invited to one wedding. Megan looked up at him. You printed her a fake date. You stay out of this. It was my wedding too. She would have ruined it. How? She always makes everything about what she's done for us. I remained seated. What did I do at the engagement dinner? He hesitated. What? You said I always ruin events. What did I do that night? You were quiet. What did I do at Mom's birthday dinner? You kept checking the bill. Because Mom asked me to pay it. He opened his mouth. I continued. What did I do at Thanksgiving? You left early, after you joked that I had no real family. That was a joke. To you. His face reddened. You think you're better than everyone because you have a title and a paycheck. No. I think I deserve basic respect even when I'm not paying. You have more than enough money. Megan closed her eyes. Ethan pointed at me. You have nobody depending on you. No husband, no kids. You live alone. What are you even saving it for? The lobby went silent around our small group. Not completely silent. Elevators still opened. Shoes crossed the floor. A telephone rang at reception. But no one in my family spoke. Megan slowly stood. So that's the truth, she said. Ethan looked at her. What? That's why you think she owes you. I didn't say that. You just did. Mom rose too. He is under enormous stress because of what Claire has done to his business and marriage. I didn't do anything to his business, I said. I stopped financing it. That is the same thing. No, Pastor Grant said quietly. It isn't. Mom turned toward him. You're supposed to help us reconcile. I cannot help anyone reconcile while pretending this did not happen. She stared at him as though he had broken a contract. I stood. My hands were cold, but my voice was steady. You removed me from the family when it was time to celebrate. You remembered I was family when the bills arrived. No one interrupted. You took my wedding money. You used lumber I paid for. You lied to your guests about why I wasn't there. Then, less than 5 minutes after telling me to leave your house, Mom reminded me that Dad's medical payment was due. Dad looked at the floor. Mom's eyes moved toward the security desk. This is not the place. This is exactly the place. You brought a pastor to my workplace because you thought public pressure would make me surrender. Aunt Ruth looked at her sister. She's right. Mom ignored her. After everything we sacrificed for you, name one. She stopped. One sacrifice, I said. Name one sacrifice you made for me that was not actually for Ethan or for the way this family looked to other people. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I turned toward Dad. What about you? He stared at the invitations. For most of my life, my father had found safety in silence. That morning silence could no longer protect him. He lifted his eyes. She's right. Mom turned toward him sharply. What did you say? Dad's voice was low. She's right about the invitation. About the money. About me staying quiet. Ethan shook his head. Oh, come on. Dad looked at him. We should never have done this. It was not an apology. Not yet. But it was the first crack in the wall. Mom picked up her purse. You are all turning against me. No, Aunt Ruth said. We are finally answering you. Mom's face tightened. This family will never recover. I held her gaze. This family was already broken. I was simply the person expected to pretend it wasn't. I removed a small envelope from my bag and handed it to Dad. Inside were old family photographs. Christmas dinners where I stood at the edge. Birthday pictures where Ethan sat between my parents while I leaned into the frame from behind. A family portrait cropped so tightly that half my shoulder was missing. I carried these through 4 moves, I said. I kept looking at them to prove I belonged because I was technically in the picture. Dad accepted the envelope. His hands trembled. I don't need them anymore. Mom stared at me. What is that supposed to mean? I'm done auditioning for the role of your daughter. You cannot stop being family. You already treated me like an outsider. You simply expected me to keep paying family prices. Ethan stepped forward. This isn't over. Megan picked up her purse. It is for me. He turned. You're leaving because of her. No. I'm leaving because every lie you told about her showed me what you will eventually do to me. She placed her wedding ring on the table beside the false invitation. The small sound of metal touching wood seemed louder than Ethan's shouting had been. Mom covered her mouth. Megan looked at me. "I'm sorry." Then she walked toward the doors. Ethan followed her, calling her name. She did not turn around. Pastor Grant stood. "I think this meeting is finished." Mom looked at me one last time. "You'll regret this when we're gone." The sentence still hurt. But it no longer controlled me. "I may regret many things," I said. "I already regret how long I believed love had to feel like this." She left. Dad remained behind for several seconds. He looked down at the envelope of photographs. "I don't know how to fix this." "You start by not asking me to make it easier for you." He nodded once. Then he followed my mother out. Aunt Ruth came to stand beside me. My knees felt weak. "Are you all right?" she asked. Number. It was the truth, but I will be. The consequences were quieter than my family predicted. No one became homeless. No one starved. No family business collapsed overnight. My parents canceled a cruise and sold their second car. Dad arranged a payment plan for his medical balance. They learned to live within their income. Ethan closed the showroom portion of his shop and returned to working from the smaller space behind his house. He told relatives I had destroyed his business. In reality, his business had always depended on other people protecting him from the cost of his choices. Megan stayed with her parents. She filed for divorce several months later. She sent me one message. The invitation did not end my marriage. It showed me the marriage I had entered. I replied, "I'm sorry you were hurt. I did not celebrate Ethan's failure. I did not need him ruined. I only needed his survival to stop depending on my disappearance." At the end of October, I drove to the cabin alone. My parents had removed most of their belongings. Mom left 3 boxes of holiday decorations, an old sewing machine, and a handwritten note on the kitchen counter. It said, "You took the heart out of this family." I sat on the porch and read the sentence twice. For years I had believed Mom was the heart of the family, because everything revolved around her feelings. But a heart was supposed to keep every part alive. It was not supposed to starve one child to protect another. I threw the note away. Over the winter, I repaired the damaged living room floor and painted the kitchen cabinets a soft green. I replaced the faded curtains. I took down the wall of family photographs. In their place, I hung pictures I had taken during weekend trips. A sunrise over the Flint Hills, a storm outside Tulsa, a red barn beneath a winter sky. For the first time, the cabin looked like the home of the person who had been caring for it. It looked like mine. Aunt Ruth visited twice a month. Our relationship did not heal instantly. Sometimes I still looked at her and remembered that she had known. When that happened, she did not ask me to move on. She listened. She answered questions. She accepted that rebuilding trust was slower than apologizing. That was how I learned the difference between remorse and discomfort. Discomfort asks to be forgiven quickly. Remorse accepts the time required to repair what it broke. My mother sent messages throughout the holidays. At Thanksgiving, "We saved you a place, although I assume you have chosen not to come." At Christmas, "Your father misses you even if you have decided family no longer matters." On New Year's Day, "Life is short." Every message was an accusation disguised as an invitation. I did not respond. Dad wrote separately. His first letter talked mostly about Mom. His second mentioned Ethan. I placed both in a wooden box without answering. Then 11 months after the wedding, another envelope arrived. It contained only one page. "Claire, I spent most of my life telling myself I was staying out of conflict. That was not true. My silence always protected the person hurting you. I knew about the separate invitation. I told myself there was no reason to argue because your mother had already decided. The truth is that arguing would have made my life harder, so I allowed yours to become painful instead. I accepted your help without asking what it cost you. I praised Ethan for things you made possible. I watched you become smaller at our table, because it was easier than admitting what we were doing. You deserved to be at your brother's wedding. More than that, you deserved to know you were wanted long before there was a wedding. I failed you. I am sorry. Dad." I read the letter twice. Then I placed it in the wooden box with the others. I did not call him that night. I did not tear up the letter either. An apology could be sincere without becoming a key that reopened every door. Trust would have to be rebuilt through behavior, slowly, without guarantees. 1 year after I found the wedding album, I hosted dinner at the cabin. Aunt Ruth brought apple crumble. My closest friend Dana arrived with a bottle of wine. 2 coworkers drove down from Kansas City. Megan joined us near sunset. She looked lighter than she had in the office lobby. We ate grilled chicken and corn on the porch while the lake turned gold beneath the evening sky. No one mocked my work. No one examined my life for empty spaces they could use. No one waited until dessert to ask for money. After dinner, Aunt Ruth raised her glass. To 1 year of Claire saying no without writing a 3-page apology afterward. Everyone laughed. Dana lifted hers. To the cabin finally looking like Claire lives here. Megan hesitated before speaking. To believing what people show us even when the truth is uncomfortable. We clinked glasses. For years I had measured my value through invitations. Was my name included? Was there a chair for me? Would anyone notice if I did not come? I finally understood that I had spent most of my life waiting outside my own life, hoping my family would open the door. The door was mine now. So was the house. So was the quiet. And the quiet no longer meant I was being ignored. It meant no one was standing beside me saying I was too intense, too successful, too single, or too difficult to deserve tenderness. My brother's wedding photographs still existed. I still wasn't in them, but they no longer proved that I was unworthy of love. They proved that I had survived a family that valued my help more than my presence. Family is not the people who remember your number when a bill arrives. Family is the people who make room for you when there is nothing to gain. I spent years trying to earn a chair at their table. The day I stopped begging for it was the day I finally recovered my dignity. So tell me, if your family deliberately excluded you from an important day after accepting years of your help, would you give them another chance? Or would you finally choose the life and the respect you should never have been forced to earn?